Is Australia a birthplace of the new Earth? To find an answer to that question, we need to look at this giant, secluded continent a little closer. If Earth were a sentient being, which she is, and decided she needed a change, why would she choose Australia as the cradle of new beginnings? Australia was once part of the great ancient supercontinent Gondwana, together with what are now Antarctica, Africa, South America, India, Madagascar, New Zealand, and Arabia. But the Australian land itself is much older. In the Pilbara region of Western Australia, ancient cratons contain rocks more than 3 billion years old, while zircon crystals found elsewhere in Western Australia have been dated to around 4.4 billion years, making them some of the oldest known materials on Earth. That is a lot of memory stored in her minerals, crystals, and precious stones. What we today call Australia is a place where she can remember her birth, her first adventures in art we call creation. Looking at today's Earth, she truly has become a master creator. Just look at the diversity of shapes, colors, textures, forms, and countless expressions of organic life. One day we may realize that Earth has always been our greatest teacher of creation. She is a magnificent infinite creator, and perhaps the manifestation techniques we are taught today are merely diluted fragments of something she has been demonstrating all along. We may realize that we were fed spiritual crumbs while sitting at the table of the greatest creator we have ever known, surrounded by the first-hand experience of creation every single day. And on one sunny New Earth day, we may genuinely ask ourselves, how could we not see it before? The next point in such a decision-making process would be the abundance of water this magnificent continent holds and is surrounded by. It may come as a surprise, but Australia holds the Great Artesian Basin, one of the largest underground freshwater systems in the world. It stretches beneath more than 1.7 million square kilometers of the continent, holding water that in some places has traveled underground for hundreds of thousands, even millions of years. Australia is surrounded by oceans, from warm tropical seas in the north to the cold, dense waters of the Southern Ocean flowing up from Antarctica. Water is the nurturer of life on Earth. Every life begins in it, including ours as humans. In one of our next videos, we will explore the incredible properties of water. We are beginning to understand more and more that water is far from being simply a tasteless, colorless liquid. It can communicate, respond to its environment, mimic, create art, memorize, and much, much more. We have only started to remember water again. This is a picture of water taken from underneath the Western Australian coastal town of Exmouth, using the freezing water technique developed by New Zealand water researcher Veda Austin. This water showed a beautiful, highly ordered crystalline structure. Perfect hexagonal formations like this are considered, within this method of water research, an indication of high-quality water. Water from the tunnels underneath the Bosnian pyramids shows similar patterns, and one of its well-known fans is Novak Djokovic, one of the greatest tennis players of all time. Let's stop for a moment at Japanese water researcher Masaru Emoto's experiments. Water that was spoken to with words of love, kindness, and beauty, or played beautiful music, formed crystalline, hexagonal, sacred geometry-like structures. So if we have water beneath our feet in Australia, creating similar structures, an interesting question arises. Who or what is speaking those kind words to Australian freshwaters? As somebody who was not born in Australia and spent most of my life walking on different lands in Europe, I can tell you that the quality of Australia feels different. There is something in her primal energy that feels like the most loving, caring, ancient presence. Not only a mother, but something before that. A primordial grandmother. Australia has this magnetic, deep, love-like quality. When I moved here, I felt as if she was pulling me towards her, the way a magnet pulls an object towards itself into her loving heart. We live on a very loving motherland. And I think she is a perfect mother for this new era for humanity and Earth, which we call the New Earth, a time of greater symbiosis among humans and between humanity and all the life that surrounds us. We already mentioned Antarctica. Antarctica holds an enormous body of frozen water, with layers of ancient ice preserving extraordinarily old records of Earth's past. I went into much more detail about this in one of our previous videos, so I will leave a link here if you want to explore Antarctica's importance as a keeper of ancient memory, and the possibility of that memory being distributed through the Earth during this time of new beginnings. I also explored there the role of whales, who migrate every year from Antarctic waters towards the lands where humans live. To me, they are great distributors of that memory. They travel enormous distances, singing old stories, singing songs of awakening, carrying their songlines along the shores of Australia, South America, and other lands they visit. Whales are not simply migrating, they are carrying something with them. We have established some of the geological factors that may explain why Australia is one of the places where the new Earth is being born, coming into existence as we speak. But before we continue, let's establish what this new Earth birthing process actually is, and how something new comes into existence. Every idea, every object, every situation begins to exist long before we can see it as manifested reality. As great Nikola Tesla said, "My brain is only a receiver." Again and again, we need to return to one remarkable fact. The human eye can perceive only around 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So much of what surrounds us remains unseen and undetected by our limited senses. For me, the next logical question is, what is hidden within the other 99.9965% of the reality we live in? I believe the new Earth was planned long before the time we are living in now. I believe it is a co-creation of Earth as sentient being, and maybe some very conscious, very knowledgeable ancient architects, forces that work with Earth. There is a saying in Aboriginal people of Australia lore. They say, the ancestors sang the land and all on it into existence. The original people of Australia have stories that their ancestors sang the land and everything on it into existence. Not long ago, I traveled from southwest Australia to Sydney. One day, we went exploring and found ourselves in a small square enclosed by skyscrapers, with restaurants all around and a city train station nearby. We took some takeaway food and sat on a bench to have lunch. I noticed the interesting architecture of the whole place. In the middle of it was a big pool, a big grey marble pool in the shape of an egg. That immediately grabbed my attention. The egg is a very sacred shape, and for some reason it reminded me of a dragon egg. But then something didn't feel right. The square, the skyscrapers around me, the greyness of it all, the busy people, the train station, people constantly exiting and entering. For the time I was there, I literally felt as though I was sitting within a Matrix movie. Maybe it was because I live in the bush, in a place where people in our nearby little town are generally more relaxed. What I observed there was everyone running, almost as though they were programmed machines. And I looked at this body of water, and the architecture around it, and everything seemed to me like some kind of artificial programming. I thought about a ley line possibly going through there, and wondered whether some kind of harvesting might be going on. In our language, we call ley lines dragon lines. So I'm thinking about all of this, and I even created a little video talking about this unusual configuration of architecture that might be mimicking some natural principles but being reversed. For some reason, all I was thinking about while being in that place were dragons. The moment we stepped out of the court and onto the street, literally only a few seconds later, I found something on the ground. A little dragon necklace. I picked it up in surprise and showed it to my partner, and as I'm looking at it, I'm shouting in child's excitement, "Dragon!" At that exact moment, a guy walked past, wearing a shirt saying, architects of sky and earth and all between. I stopped him and asked if I could take a photo, and there it was. I had been thinking about architecture, dragons, dragon lines, and all of that, and suddenly there was a dragon in my hand and this message walking past me on a stranger's shirt. For me, it was such an important synchronicity, such a confirming moment, and I realized, yes, I believe there are ancient architects, primordial creative forces, perhaps related to what many ancient cultures remembered as ancestral beings. I think they are incredibly capable and intelligent beings. They know the principles of creation really well. Some call the ultimate primordial creator God or Goddess. Perhaps these forces are its architects, sent out to create worlds. Original people here may recognize them as a rainbow serpent. They know geometry, pattern, proportion, relationship. They know how to bring longevity, harmony, function, and beauty together. Sacred geometry is the oldest and best design principle ever used to bring together longevity, harmony, function, and beauty. I think at least some of us human beings are deeply connected to those creative forces. I will humbly say that as I am writing these words right now, I feel that I and mission I am carrying out here are part of that tribe. And if you are listening to this, and something within you recognizes what I am saying, perhaps you are too. So here we are, co-creators. There is a mythology alive in many cultures around the world, in the lore of the original people of Australia, in Indian stories, Hawaiian and Maori traditions, African traditions, Hopi stories, and many others. Speaking of previous worlds and ancient civilizations that existed before the civilization we are taught about in school. And there is growing archaeological evidence challenging the conventional timeline of human civilization. One of the places I have personally explored extensively is the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, which dates back more than 30,000 years. In Western traditions, we also have stories of Atlantis and Lemuria. After traveling extensively through remote and sacred places of Western Australia, spending long periods of time exploring, observing, and deeply listening to the land, I came to a conclusion. My intuition, experiences, and the synchronicities that accompanied that journey of inquiry kept pointing me in the same direction. I came to believe that it is very plausible that what we today call Australia was once part of a much greater Lemuria, stretching across the Pacific Ocean. Spending time at those sacred sites, the landscapes and waters began showing me a face I had never noticed before. I saw structures preserved within rocks, so precise in their shapes that I found it difficult to dismiss them simply as coincidental creations of nature. Rock structures resembling something like a Mayan or Egyptian face, frozen in stone. A crocodile-like statue, carved with such perfection, with legs, claws, body, perfect crocodile skin, head and snout, that I found it impossible to dismiss. This and much, much more, mostly within ancient and sacred areas like the Pilbara and Kimberley. Walls of rocks, too perfect, made of blocks, looking too precise to be dismissed merely as natural. When one sits for a long time in silence in those sacred spaces and manages to become quiet within, perception changes. The state of our being changes. We are invited into sacred silence, and then it seems as though there is some intelligence in such places, something ancient reaching out. And listening deeply to that voice, this is what I was taught. Yes, what we call Australia today have been a place where a beautiful civilization lived according to principles of symbiosis within themselves, within community, and in a symbiotic relationship with life. That was the base, and their memories are still embedded in our waters and rocks. The wind still whispers about them, and so do the trees. Those stories are embedded within the landscapes. And here we are, walking upon them, touching them, learning to read this ongoing book of existence, remembering the principles again, so that we can build our new society upon something that is ultimately stable and sustainable. So here we are in Australia, living on a land swimming in and drinking waters full of ancient memories, remembering the past in order to rebuild something that once was and worked. For now, we call this new co-creation, this new society, the new Earth. Maybe one day she will whisper to us what she really wants to be called. And because of those preserved memories, and because there are people living on this continent who are willing to stop for a moment and actually listen, embrace those guidelines as something really good, and gradually begin to live by those principles, we are the carriers of that new creation. Right now, in these times, we are sitting in the very early stages of its birth. Another factor of enormous importance is the fact that the original people of this land lived according to principles close to some of the most important Lemurian principles. They loved and cared for country. They understood country as mother, and they understood their relationship with all life around them. But they were not simply earth guardians. They were looking into the stars too. They knew their sky. They knew the seven sisters and preserved their stories through generation after generation across thousands and thousands of years. And in preserving this ancient knowledge, I believe they also preserved a great part of what we might call Lemurian lore. Perhaps its most important principle of all, symbiosis and a deep love and respect for life. Love your country, and country will love you back. The stories are still here. Thousands of generations of ancestors are still present within these landscapes as living spirits, whispering those old stories into the ears of to whom it may concern. And so the original people of this land are one of our most important living links to the old lore, the old knowledge upon which the new earth can be built. When we talk about the new earth, we can't overlook our trees and the entire botanical world. Trees truly are much, much more than just silent decor, givers and producers of oxygen, providers of materials and food, and providers of shade. They are wisdom keepers, memory keepers. They know things. They remember things they witnessed. They remember what their primordial grandparents witnessed. They have the most incredible mycelium connection network all over the world. They can reach each other even overseas through fine wireless fibers that we cannot see, transferring information and allowing distant and instant communication almost momentarily, like Nikola Tesla's scalar waves or Tesla waves. Pure telepathy. We go deeper into the importance and wisdom of trees in our documentary series, and I will put a link here. We also go deeper into natural scalar waves and fields technology in a separate video, and I will put that link here too. We have some amazing trees, networks and forests, and ancient species like the bob trees of the Kimberley in Western Australia. Those silent grandparents carry a link all the way to another ancient land, Africa. Their DNA lineage is very strong, and they are wise. In Lemuria, and so it will be on the new earth, it was very common and very normal to treat trees as companions, friends, family, part of the community, healers and therapists. They played such an important role in the community, and on the new earth that's going to happen again. One of the most distinguishing things that separates our current society from the new earth one is our relationship to life, to nature around us, to existence. We treat life with so much respect and understanding. We understand how much we depend on it and that we are part of it. We're not separate. We're not visitors. We're not extractors. We're not parasites. We live in a symbiotic, respectful relationship in a win-win situation. We mentioned Australian Aboriginal people lore before. Stephen Strong, Australian history explorer, told me that Dreamtime stories are very diverse across the tribes, but that they have one story in common. The story of the seven sisters, pointing towards the star cluster we today call the Pleiades. And in many cases, original people believe that they came from the Pleiades. Again, we have another interesting connection. Not long ago, it was discovered that the valley of the Bosnian pyramids mirrors Pleiades. And not just that. It turned out that the stars of the Pleiades that we can see are organized in a sacred Fibonacci sequence spiral, which brings us back to sacred geometry. I believe the cosmology of the new Earth will expand into an understanding that there is life beyond this Earth, in this vast cosmos, and that there are lives and worlds in existence within parts of the electromagnetic spectrum that we cannot see. There may be countless worlds and beings in existence around us. And on the new Earth, we will stop living within the enclosure and isolation of Earth. We will live in active communication with those who match our established ways of living, our ethics, and our philosophies of life. There are ancient prophecies within old traditions of the world, like the Hopi prophecy of the rainbow warriors, who will come, people whose souls had previously incarnated within those ancient traditions, like the Hopi people of America or the original people of this land. I would add that maybe some Lemurians are walking around today in these occasionally to dance crude and awkward, yet on so many levels beautiful, physical bodies of ours. Maybe some of those souls, or perhaps many of them, are incarnated today. And look at what we have in Australia. We have representatives here of almost every nation, every culture, and every religion. We really are very colorful and diverse. And perhaps we are something like the rainbow serpent we find in Aboriginal lore. Together, we are the weavers of those new realities. And as we said in the beginning, that weaving starts long before we can see its physical result on Earth. I think we are weaving this beautiful carpet we call the new Earth right now. Every single one of us holds our own original thread, our own talent, our own knowledge, experience, and mission that we bring into this play of co-creation. Let's return to geology for a second. As we know, Australia is very rich in all kinds of crystals, especially quartz. The land is rich in minerals and precious stones, and in all of that might have been part of previous ancient civilization technology. We learn today about the piezoelectric principle, which creates strong energetic fields and produces energy. We also know today quartz crystal can store information for billions of years. Tech companies are developing this use of this natural technology as we speak. One of the things in the new civilization is that we will understand natural technology really well. We will understand that every form, every shape of life starts with a torus, a donut-like energetic field. And we will understand how to work with energies, how to maintain and nourish those fine, sacred fibers we are made of. We are far more than the physical body as we know today. And we will understand again how to stabilize and empower our energetic fields and the fields we work with the help of crystals, with the help of minerals, with the help of precious stones. All of that is lost ancient civilization technology, and we will learn how to rebuild civilization on those principles again. We will understand what Nikola Tesla understood, that communication paths are much more subtle than just talking. We will understand the natural wireless system that we are surrounded with, that wireless as we know it today is just a bad copy of reality, where communication is far, far more than just spoken words or spoken sounds that we can hear with our ears. And we will understand again that as it goes for the visual, it also goes for the audible. There are so many sounds around us that we can't hear. We will understand this and expand our capability so that more of what is now a silent world for us can become a part of our reality. And the vastness and silence of Australia's creeks and deserts will support us in that. As we learn and remember these principles, we cannot avoid mentioning Nikola Tesla again. My recent research into his scalar waves and scalar energy fields brought me to an interesting conclusion, that there is an established scalar grid on Earth, and it just happens that there are two pivotal points, conjunctions of those scalar lines, and one of them is in Perth, Western Australia, of all places. The other, which mirrors Perth on the other side of the Earth, is near Bermuda, relatively close to the location of Nikola Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island, New York, and place of ongoing intriguing electromagnetic anomalies. You can watch a separate video about this exploration, link added here. So here are some of the reasons why I believe Australia is a birthplace of the new Earth. I'm sure there are more. This is just the beginning. If you think there are others, please let me know in the comments. As I said, we are weaving this story together. Let's continue exploring and co-creating this beautiful emerging reality together. I hope to see you in our next video. If story resonates, please share. Thank you.